Hey, this is Ellie Einhorn. Welcome to the Talkhouse podcast. Today I'm joined by
Nick Dawson, editor-in-chief of Talkhouse Film.
And the guest for today's episode, Miguel Arteta with Patrick Brice.
Yeah, these are two directors who both happen to be working with the Duplass brothers at the moment, working out of their office, both in post-production and working with the same editor. So what could be more natural than to get the two of them together for a podcast?
Patrick went around to Miguel's home, sat in his extra tall chair, sipped his coffee with soy milk.
They had a great time, which is understandable because Patrick is a huge fan of Miguel's work. Everything from Chuck and Buck to The Good Girl to Cedar Rapids.
The feeling's mutual.
And the feeling is mutual. Miguel is a huge fan of Patrick's movie, The Overnight, and he hasn't actually seen Creep, but we'll get to that in a moment.
There's a reason for that.
There's a reason for that.
The guys have a fantastic conversation, punctuated by an interesting start partway through it.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like a really long pre-credit sequence, and then they decide they're very professional and they do like a little intro and let us know exactly where they are and what they're doing. But it was all on the record, just so you know.
Some very choice moments here. One of my favorites, the guys talk about the difficulties of navigating the power structure of the studio system.
Yeah, Patrick is about to do his first studio movie. Miguel has been in the system for a long time, even though he's an indie director. He's worked with Disney, he's worked with Focus, he's done a lot of stuff with the big guns, and he knows what's up.
There's also a great anecdote about Martin Scorsese's fascinating audition methods.
Which was part of a bigger story of a nightmare TV show situation that Miguel was in. Not Scorsese's fault, of course. Marty can do no wrong as far as I'm concerned.
They also talk about Jason Schwartzman, who they've both worked with, and his momentary reticence to take off his shirt due to just a touch of dad bod.
Yeah, not that either of us know anything about that, but it's funny because fatherhood is actually a subject that comes up as a big focus of the talk because Patrick just became a father and it's a huge aspect of his life. And they talk about it also particularly in the context of what's happening in the world and our current... The T word, our current president. And of course, another interesting aspect is that Trump is really kind of a huge undercurrent in Miguel's new movie, Beatrice at Dinner, starring Salma Hayek and John Lithgow and Connie Britton. And it's kind of a comic parable about politics in our current age, which was made before Trump became president, but is so prescient now.
Nick, I'm still wondering why he hasn't seen Creep.
Dude, it's a mystery, and I think we owe it to ourselves to finally find out.
Let's see.
I have not watched Creep. I want to watch it. My wife watched it, and she's still freaked out.
Oh, good.
So I'm when I watch it. I'm quite a scary cat when it comes to horror.
Me too.
You are?
Oh, completely.
We
didn't. Mark will say the same. We didn't think we were making a horror movie.
Okay.
We thought we were making like a dark comedy character study. And it wasn't until we showed it to people that they were like, "You guys made a horror movie. You need to,
That's amazing."
And because it was just Mark and I, and we had no crew besides Chris.
Yeah.
When there were changes to be made, after these horrifying test screenings, we would go out and reshoot it because we had no excuse. Like, it was,
yeah, you could just do it.
Yeah, you could just do it. Thankfully, we just tested Creep 2 this week.
I heard last Wednesday you had. I was coloring Doc Butter over in the West Side. How did it go?
Surprisingly well.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm not counting my chickens by any means. And there's still work to be done, but I was really surprised by how people took to it. And it was mostly people who had seen the first movie and enjoyed the first movie, and that's the audience for it.
Yep. But do you feel like you're doing something new with it?
Yes, I feel like yes. Yeah. And and it's funny because I feel like the same way we made the first movie, it was a result of us kind of stumbling into it, and just that is a raw way to make a movie where you're just kind of following your instincts and making big changes. We made a big plot change while we were shooting just because we had the benefit of shooting in continuity for the most part, so we could.
Yeah.
Have you had that experience before when you're making something and you?
Not really. I mean, Doc Butter is the first improvised movie that I'd done, but that actually was pretty carefully plotted,
Yeah.
So no, I haven't had that. I've reshot, like my first movie. I I submitted it to Sundance, and they were like, you don't know how to write, and you should, rewrite the script. I submitted the script to go to the labs, and they were like, this is not ready. And I got very angry at them, said, fuck you, I'm going to make it. And I made it, and then it was a mess.
Right.
And so I had to learn to write after the fact.
Was that Chuck and Buck?
No, it was Star Maps. And so I reshot, like, a third of it was reshot after I rewrote it. So,
wow.
And I did reshoots for the next 3 films. My first 4 films, I've done reshoots, and the last 4 I have not. But I would love to be shooting continuity and be able to do that. To just figure out where things go.
Yeah. Do you try to plan it so it can be as much in continuity as possible, or are you just beholden to?
I mean, it depends, but yes,
honestly.
usually it's always best.
Yeah.
I do like throwing the actors into something that they don't want to do on day 2.
Yeah.
Like
You mean jumping ahead of time or something?
or just something emotional, something that the scene that they're dreading and that they think is way too important.
Yeah.
I like getting that done like almost immediately.
Yeah.
Because I don't want them to be thinking about it the whole time we're shooting.
That's
So
really
it's like,
smart.
It's nice to just throw them in. They're very angry at you, and then you start making the movie.
Yeah. Well, it's an icebreaker,
Yeah, exactly. It's important to let them know that they cannot really control the thing.
Right. Yeah. Right. Well, yeah, no one's in control. It's just this amorphous thing that's happening, this train. It's funny. I mean, we didn't have the benefit of time when we were making the overnight, but the final sex scene, I think, was something that was on everyone's mind the entire time.
Yeah.
And I think, and it was also the last thing we shot, basically. And I'm grateful for that, because I think the way that it was originally written, it was a lot different than it ended up being in the final movie. It was a lot less kind of tender and sort of like hesitant, And so I'm grateful that we actually waited.
And everybody got to like each other and...
Yeah, and at least, and really, understand the escalation and get to this point where, they were, everyone was being super vulnerable with each other, but yet it made sense. It didn't feel like a break, a thematic break from what we'd already done.
It's such a wonderful movie, dude.
Oh, thanks.
It's such a fun movie, and it's such a wonderful movie. You really get us in your hands and never let go. I love that about a movie, when you're like, okay, I'm in great storytelling hands, and they got me. And I think it's like telling a feature film is like surfing.
Yeah.
Like if you can catch a wave and never get off of it, if you can create the perfect way for somebody to surf for the whole 90 minutes.
Yeah.
It is such a great experience.
Yeah.
And it was like just so gripping and funny and just so much fun from beginning to end.
Oh, thanks. Have you worked with Jason before?
I have in television. Mike White had a short-lived TV series called Cracking Up on Fox. And Jason was a psychology student that ends up living at this crazy rich people's home for free in exchange for therapy for them, It's called, and Molly Shannon was in it.
Oh, my God.
And his girlfriend at the time, Zoe Deschanel, was in the show. So we got to spend a week together working. He's fantastic.
He's an angel, man. I mean, he came to the project super late, and it was a surprise. And I'm so grateful, because that role could have easily been, creepy or sort of like off-putting in a bad way. And because it's Jason,
it's too sweet. Yeah,
yeah, he's too sweet. He just
he can get away with it.
He doesn't have a mean bone in his body, and so there was this like inclusivity that attached to his character that was like such a nice surprise, and
Does he take his shirt off in the film?
Yeah.
I couldn't get him to take his shirt off in the show.
He was hesitant.
Very, very aware of his body hair. He was like, Miguel, do me a favor, don't.
Yeah.
But that's cool.
Yeah, he was surprisingly self-conscious. He had a 2-week-old baby when he came to do that movie,
right?
And so he was a little timid with he said he had a dad bod and he didn't want to do it, but It was in the script. He had to.
Okay, so we're formally starting our talk.
Now, assume our characters.
Yes. I'm Miguel Arteta, and we're in my house in the hills of Hollywood.
And I'm Patrick Brice, and I'm sitting in Miguel's big, comfortable chair, which is made for a tall person.
It is.
And I might take it with me back home.
A lot of people have tried.
Yeah. And I came in demanding that he make me coffee and with soy milk, and he provided it for me. So I'm very grateful.
How's the instant coffee?
It's so good. Is this instant?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it's all organic and whatnot, but I like it.
It's good. Yeah.
So you're very busy right now.
I'm very busy.
You're like finishing Creep 2.
Yes.
And then weren't you about to make a movie?
I was going to be making a movie this summer, originally with Jessica Chastain and Cecily Strong.
Okay.
But Jessica had to fall out because of scheduling. Then we cast Kerry Washington. Then she had to fall out because of scheduling. And then we missed our window to shoot for the California tax credit. So this is actually, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about. This is my first experience making a studio movie.
Which studio is it?
Lionsgate.
Okay, cool.
And so this is the first time I've been on, what feels like a very slow-moving cruise ship that I'm having to, pivot in the slowest way possible. And there's icebergs, and I'm working with great people. And if we get to make this movie, it'll be a wonderful thing. But I've been completely spoiled having, first dipped my toes into the world of narrative filmmaking, making movies with Mark Duplass.
Yes, of course.
Which you just experienced for the first time.
Mark and Jay produce Doc Butter, which I'm just finishing. And they're incredible producers with Mel Aslan, who works with them, and a whole slew of other amazing people. Yeah, I've never had it this good in 20 years. They're the best producers.
Wow.
They're really are kind of creating the dream of being like, let's put the right priorities in the right place. Like, it's about telling an unusual story and trying to say something about people and trying to have fun with it, and it's been remarkable. So yes, I could see that's quite a shock.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to make a movie with a corporation.
Yes.
First of all, the hard thing is that you can't identify who has the power in a corporation to make things happen.
Right.
And that would be my first piece of advice.
Yeah.
Is like, in the world that you're getting to know of Lionsgate, can you identify who truly is running that corporation to say yes, to make your movie move forward?
Right.
Because unfortunately, a lot of corporations are set up so that the person that has that say has a whole bunch of people underneath them that are terrified of losing their jobs, and they would rather have your movie not be made than having to take a risk with the person that can say yes.
Right.
So there's always a lot of that.
Yeah.
Where you feel like the momentum just dries up.
Right.
Because and there's no shortage of excuses why a movie gets postponed.
Right.
Like if you want to find one, it's generally speaking, the universe doesn't want any movie to be born. So it's like...
No, the traditional Hollywood system seems set up so that movies will not get made.
Exactly.
For the most part. I mean, there's that idea of, as a director or as a creator, it's always good to be finishing something up in the middle of something and then starting something at the same time. And where do you find that balance?
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
And so I've just done that. So I'm outside of finishing Creep 2, in the meantime, I directed an episode of their TV show, and and then I'm working on another TV show with Mark, right? Developing, and so it's like, because this studio thing is not my only thing, it's not been as hard when reaching these roadblocks, and that's just me trying to protect myself from disappointment. And I'm always waiting for the other shoe to drop on everything, So that's my in order to protect myself from disappointment. That's the way I've always approached Like I never believe any of it's going to happen.
If you can put your heart in it, it can never go wrong. That's my feeling.
Yeah.
Like, I see a lot of young filmmakers trying to figure out what is my best next step. And it's like, really, if you can put your heart in the story, it can be anything.
Yeah.
And you can't go wrong.
Yeah.
Like, there's no, the only wrong turn is when you do something that you can't put your heart in it because such and such person's involved with, or you think you're going to make money, or for any number of other reasons.
That's built to spill.
Built to spill.
Yeah.
That's happened to me. I got handed, after I did Chalk and Buck, they gave me a script for a pilot and it was Martin Scorsese's first venture into television in 2000. And I couldn't understand the script. I mean, like, it was just like, I didn't know what the fuck it was. I was just like, the guy who I worked on Homicide had written in it, and it made no sense. And but I was like, I have to say yes because Martin Scorsese is involved.
Yeah, can't say no to Marty.
I was like, I mean, that's just insane not to go.
Was he a Chuck and Buck fan? Had you seen it?
I thought so, but then it turns out that the only reason he hired me is because a scene I had done in one Homicide episode reminded him of a Raoul Walsh movie from the 30s. So he knew that I knew about Raoul Walsh movies, which was remarkable that he could decipher that I'm a Raoul Walsh fan. Raoul Walsh is like the most energetic of the golden era of Hollywood, filmmakers. He would make movies that just go and go and go. And he was like, "That's why you're hired." And I don't think he saw Chuck and Buck. So it was very bizarre. I loved the experience, but the thing turned out like shit. It was just terrible. And
was that because you had a take on it that you were able to follow through with and then didn't work, or is that because you felt like you were fulfilling someone else's vision?
Yeah, I couldn't put my heart in it. I didn't know what it was. And then the writer turned out to be paranoid and insane and an alcoholic. And he would just be like, calling me at 3 a.m. and going like, "You and the DP are trying to fuck me. I know you're trying to fuck me. I can see it happening." And he also forced Scorsese to cast, Scorsese did something which, this was the good thing of it. He was like, okay, we're going to find an actor the way I like to find an actor. Like, call all the agencies in LA and have them send me tapes of people that have been in LA only 1 or 2 months at months, both. They've done nothing. Like, just each agency sent me 10 tapes of a guy that just done nothing. They just signed him. And then he watched all of those tapes and he asked 3 guys to come. And 2 sucked, but one was it was the new Ray Liotta. It was just unbelievable. I mean, and I got to audition these guys with Marty who were so freaked out they didn't know. They just driven to LA and got a sign, and like suddenly they're like, "Martin Scorsese wants to see you. You gotta go to New York." And it was, and then this guy was like a little young Ray Liotta. The story was about Marty's neighborhood in Little Italy, and so I was like, okay, this is like amazing. And we were set, like we cast this guy. And the writer was like, "Marty, I'm sorry, this is television. And you don't know about, there's a thing called TVQ where you have to have a number and you don't know about casting in television. You don't know about casting." And Marty was like, just looked at him and was like, "I don't know about casting." And he just like gave him a completely iced him and was just basically, we were dead to him after that. And then we ended up casting McDreamy, Patrick Dempsey, as this tough Italian guy. I mean, he's like a ski bunny from New Hampshire. Right. And so we were also dead in the water from the start.
Oh man.
But if you can't put your heart in it, it's not gonna work.
Yeah.
And John C. Reilly told me the same. He did the Days of Thunder, that Tom Cruise movie.
That's right. Yeah.
He said he learned that lesson in that movie because it was that amazing actor. Oh my God, he's in The Godfather. He plays the consigliere.
Robert Duvall.
Robert Duvall was in the movie, so he was like, "I'm gonna do this movie. I don't understand the script." It was like, Robert Duvall's in the movie. And then it was like the biggest nightmare of his life and a total flop.
Really?
And it just hurt his career.
Yeah.
And he was like, we were commiserating. It's like, it really is like the moment you can't put, it's just the story. Can you put your heart in the story?
Right.
The moment you go off of that, you're screwed. So I want to ask you, what are your two biggest concerns right now?
My two biggest concerns right now?
Yeah, like regardless of movies or no movies or anything.
My two biggest concerns, I mean, one is Donald Trump. I mean, that's and the fact that this is something I have to think about every day now, you know. And
is being a father has made that a bigger thing because
are you kidding?
Because your kid is like having to grow up.
No, and I'm someone who, I mean, I've been with my wife 11 years.
Amazing. You guys got together young.
We got together super young, and she was 19 and I was 22.
Amazing.
And so when we met each other, I think one of the first things I told her was that I never wanted to have children because the world is a hard place, and I knew I'd gone through enough hardship in my life to get to the point that I was then that I couldn't imagine putting a child through that, right? And then being with someone like that, and being with someone like my wife, who is just an intensely nurturing, beautiful person who we grew up together, you know, because when you meet at that age, you're a different person. And we've been through 2 or 3 different iterations of our relationship dynamic over that time, you know. And, you know, was times where I was working and she was in school, and then I was in school and she was working, and she worked as a nanny a lot. And so I was around her with kids a lot. And I was just being around more children, you know, changed that for me. And it became less about myself, you know, and it became more about, rather than thinking that I'm putting this child through this horrible situation, I'm potentially bringing more good into the world. You know, that was how I saw it. That was what I was projecting, right? And so, and then also seeing how my wife was with kids changed that for me. And so, and even when she was pregnant, I was obviously still super nervous, you know? And it's, you know, because there's all these things you can't control, right?
Yep.
But having a 1-month-old on your chest on election night,
oh God,
you know, and both of us going to bed crying, that was a really dark moment. And then what's crazy is my son got a UTI a week after that, and like my wife is certain that it's because he felt the negative energy. Yeah. And we were in the hospital for 4 days.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
At what point were we at politically when Beatriz came to be? Because it is such a
we
film.
Mike wrote it just when Donald Trump announced that he was going to try to be, get the Republican nomination, and said that all Mexicans were rapists.
Right.
And that, I think, fueled a little bit what he was writing.
Right.
But we didn't think, we shot it in August of last year.
Yeah.
So even at that point, everybody was like, he's never going to win.
Yeah.
Like, so we didn't think so. And when we were editing, I didn't think he was going to win. I was in a bubble a little bit. And then when he won, it was just too bizarre. We were finishing the editing, and then we premiered the movie 2 days after his inauguration.
Wow.
At Sundance.
Yeah.
And it's hard to believe. Yeah.
And I mean, I feel like another part of this situation, obviously, is that all of this has been under the surface, or just below the surface.
Yes.
The systemic racism, classism in this country, and so part of me is, part of me is excited, and part of me is invigorated that people are being honest with each other,
exposing themselves to who's who.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's also very scary for that to be happening while these guys are the ones in power,
It is very hard to answer what's the right thing to do.
Do you know what Mark Duplass has actually been doing with?
Yeah, he told me a little bit. He's been going in conservative outlets and just trying to argue, right? Like just presenting.
Yeah, not even argue. Just like, I mean, he's really going. He's really going with as much of an olive branch as he possibly can. Okay. You know, saying, you know, and also because, you know, what a lot of these guys do is they try to beat you in the argument by citing as many obscure facts as possible, and you know. He goes saying, like, I don't know as much as you do. You know more than me. This is your life, but here's how I feel, and I'm willing to talk this out with you, you know? And it's funny because, you know, to be honest, my reaction when I first heard some of the places that he was going to and some of the people he was talking to was like, why are you wasting your time with that person?
Right.
You know, why on God's green earth do you want to talk to this person who's made their life out of spewing hate? You know, but then actually like listening to the interviews and just knowing Mark and like and seeing the reaction from people, it's been refreshing. You know, because at least it's like, okay, a conversation can be had.
That's cool.
You know,
that's great.
And there is a basic humanity that connects us that we can.
I think he was saying that he knew certain premises that like they could agree on that he would start talking about.
Well, for him, it's charity. That's
right.
the main thing for him. Is it's like, and kids, like we all want kids to be healthy and we want kids to be smart, right? So like, how do we do that? How do we agree on that? You know. And so I do think that that's constructive, and I really think it's and it's also been a. You know, I gotta acknowledge it's been a challenge to like my own way of dealing with this for me, like processing that. And you know, I guess I'm gonna try to put it through in my work. That's been the sort of realization where it's like, okay, I can affect that. That is a way where I can affect some change, you know, at the point that I'm at now.
What is your second biggest concern?
My second biggest concern, I mean, it's being a dad, and it's, you know,
it's challenging no matter how you slice it.
Yeah. Like, and super complicated, and it's, you know, it's amazing how much it brings out brings up everything in terms of your relationship with your own father, you know. And so many memories that I'd forgotten about come back.
Wow. You feel like you understand your dad better now?
Completely. I feel like I understand all dads better now, cool. For the most part. You know, and that's another thing that like completely offends me about Trump is, you know, making a statement like I've never changed a diaper in my life. Just like that, like you're dead to me at this point. If that's something that you can't handle, then you know.
When he was angry at that baby in the campaign rally, I thought, okay, now he's done.
Yeah,
like everybody loves babies.
Yeah,
he was openly saying like, I hate babies. Shut up, that baby, man. You know, like it's unbelievable.
Yeah. But I understand. I understand all dads in that I understand like being tired, and I understand wanting to cut to the chase, and I understand the importance of time management a lot better now. I think, and I feel like, and it's nice because I feel like I'm a much more direct person, and you know, I feel like I'm much more. I'm much more honest than I've ever been because there's just no fucking around when you got a kid, you know.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's great. It feels very freeing for sure.
It's got to be amazing. I think there is a natural aspect to it that obviously got to be just incredible to just refresh see the world all over again.
Completely.
Through the eyes of somebody that's discovering it for the first time.
Yeah. And it's also, I mean, going back to the work, it's influenced my choices completely. And it's lit a fire under my ass where before, where I felt like I was sort of, you know, oh yeah, let's try and make this kind of movie, or let's try this out. It's more like now I need to be constantly working, and I need to, you know, obviously be reconciling my own creative impulses with paying my mortgage at the same time, and like how like that constant battle,
just
right?
like, yeah.
And I don't know. I think now, and I think with TV the way it is, and I think the fact that you can make, in terms of like the way movies are getting made with private investors and stuff, you can make unique movies that exist between genres,
Definitely,
and make a living. Like you can.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one thing that I see that in your trajectory, and it seems like you've been able to kind of follow your bliss a little bit in terms of.
I've been very lucky. I mean, television has gotten this golden era as I got into this,
Right.
And so like one of my first jobs was in TV was Freaks and Geeks.
Oh my God!
And then I got into 6 Feet Under. I did 3 of those,
Yeah.
and then I got to do Enlighten and Getting On. There's been a lot of really good television that's been able to help support me, which has been great. And residuals are just awesome.
Yeah.
I did an episode of The Office, and just one.
Yeah.
And it's like the residuals alone on that have been just so nice. But it's in terms of making money in features it's difficult. I've only gotten really, really paid one time when I did a Disney movie.
Right. How was that experience?
It was great, except for the editing.
Really?
They got really involved in the editing.
Yeah.
And I had a bad producer. Even the studio was like, we're a studio and we're meant to interfere and fuck with you.
Right.
We're just shocked. Your producer's worse than us. Like he's like worse than a studio. Now I know what it feels like to work with us.
Right.
So they got really brutally and also in a silly way involved with editing. Just to the point that I started to do reverse psychology and getting the things I wanted.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it was all about just screwing me. And I literally was like, all right, I'll just be asking for the opposite.
Yeah.
And then they would grant me what I wanted.
Oh my God.
It was just so ridiculous. But it was a good experience. I got paid very well. And in pre-production and shooting, they left me alone.
Yeah.
So, but I was able to find a story that I could put my heart in.
Yeah.
I wanted to sell out. I want to sell out badly, but I have not been able to find a script that I think I could do.
You would want to make a really big movie at some point?
I would be very happy. I came very close to doing Guardians of the Galaxy. If I could put my heart in it, yes, I would love to. Are you
a genre guy? Are you a comic book guy at all?
Not at all. I was definitely the wrong person for that.
Yeah.
They were looking at me like, why are you here? And I was looking at them like, why am I here?
Yeah.
They just like Cedar Rapids, and I fit the bill of directors that they wanted to,
I love Cedar Rapids, man. I think it's such a special film, and it was such a joy.
If you can work with John C. Reilly sometime, you should do that.
Yeah, that'd be great.
He's such a comic genius.
Yeah, I love him in Mark and Jay's movie too. That's actually my Cyrus. That's actually my favorite movie of theirs.
It's beautiful, and he's great, and everybody's great in Cyrus. It's just I know he's such a unique talent, but I think I bet you could do something amazing with him. What are you gonna do next?
So we'll see what happens. But I just found out on Friday that I got a script. Actually, that a production company you just worked with Christine Vachon and those guys are producing.
Cool.
And
they're awesome.
That Zach Woods wrote. Do you know Zach Woods? Have you met him?
Maybe I know his work, but I don't know him. He's on Silicon Valley. He was in the Loop too. Mm-hmm. He was on The Office as well. But he wrote it for himself to star in. It's called Bully. Oh, cool.
And so we'll see what happens. They don't have a financier yet, but we're like hitting the ground running on Monday with that, basically.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
And that would be in New York, which I've never shot in New York before. I've actually never made a movie outside of Los Angeles before. So
amazing.
That'll be it.
New York is a friendly town for shooting.
Yeah.
People really, they welcome movie making.
Yeah, I'm still completely intimidated, even just stepping off the plane going to New York. I mean, I grew up in a town of like 9,000 people in the middle of the woods.
In Northern California?
In Northern California. So like,
which town?
Nevada City.
I've been to Nevada City.
Really?
Oh, yes. On my way to Burning Man one time.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
I spent the night in Nevada City.
Where did you stay in, like one of the
motel.
weird
On
hotels?
my way back from I was so burnt out from Burning Man that in 1998 that I stopped at a motel in Nevada City.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a weird place to grow up. Because I mean, do you know the makeup of the town? It's like a lot of hippies, a lot of back to the land people, and then rednecks,
right,
and a lot of Republicans, and I was a child of hippies, and so I got picked on a lot
because of high school
because of that. Yeah, it's part of the reason I dropped out and went away. But my mom still lives there. It's a beautiful place.
It is. It is. Mike Mills has a house over there.
Yeah,
that he was building right nearby there.
Yeah.
That must have been a strange, tiny place to grow up. So you wanted to get out just because it was difficult in school, or because it was small?
My parents were divorced. I was going back and forth between houses, so it was like a week on, week off. So I would get on the bus with as a teenager, you have all your favorite clothes, and so I wouldn't want to leave separate clothes at each house. So I would bring a suitcase to school on Friday. And that became unsustainable, And just my parents were like, if you want to take the GED and move to San Francisco, we'll give you a couple $100 a month to go to junior college. And so that's what I did. And
awesome.
And it was great because I was a 17-year-old navigating the adult world, hanging out with a bunch of 30-somethings. So it was like I had to grow up pretty quickly, but it was good. It was a lot better than I would have fared probably staying there. And you spent most of your teenage time
I was in Puerto Rico till I was 13, and then I moved to Costa Rica when I was 13, and I got myself thrown out of high school at 16 so I could leave the country because there was only one American school, and I knew that if I got thrown out, my parents would probably let me go to the United States. And so I had an American girlfriend, and we started to make out in front of everybody on campus. And my parents got a letter saying, for having horizontal affection on campus premises.
Oh, my God.
In 1980, I got thrown out.
It was planned. It was pre-planned.
It was pre-planned, yes. And it was very conservative culture, and they were all following us because the kids could not do anything without chaperones. But me and
was it Catholic, super Catholic?
Super Catholic. Yeah. So we invited them to follow us. When my parents made the mistake of leaving for a month on their anniversary. And I just learned to drive the Jeep and moved in with my American girlfriend and just created such havoc. And the plan was to get just thrown out. And
where did you land in America?
I landed in Boston because my siblings, who were older, all had gone either to Harvard or Tufts or Brown. They were in New England. And my older sister found a hippie school in Boston that I could repeat a couple of years and learn English. And it was very liberal. She knew I would do well there. And it was a really crazy liberal place.
And did you already know you wanted to make movies?
No, I started making movies while I was there at this little hippie haven. You didn't even have to go to classes. It was so.
What was the school?
It's called the Cambridge School of Western, and it had modules, and it didn't have really grades. It was one of the two boarding schools in America that had co-ed dorms, which was the stupidest idea in the world.
Yeah. You're asking for it.
Oh my God, the abortions were left and right. It was just crazy. And so I went there and I picked up a camera. A friend of mine's father did industrials and stuff, and he had a video camera. And I was inspired by Buñuel and Fellini and things like that. And we made a little weird experimental movie. And the moment I started doing it, I was like, I feel at home.
Yeah.
I was like, I think I found my niche. I think this is it.
Yeah.
And I've never stopped making movies since then.
Yeah. Did you move to New York after that? Were you there?
I moved. I went to Harvard for a year, and I took a year off, and a year, and I took a year off. It was not a good place to be doing film, and it wasn't a good place for me. But then I went to Wesleyan University in Connecticut because that friend of mine who I started making movies was there, and they have the greatest film department in the world. Mm-hmm. They have a film scholar that she's still teaching there, and it's an impressive amount of filmmakers that she has put in the world. Of all kinds. 2 years ahead of me was Michael Bay. A year ahead of me was Joss Whedon.
Yeah.
Paul White was on my year. Mike White a couple of years later.
Mm-hmm.
She's been doing incredible, like 15 people a year putting for the last.
What's her name?
Janine Basinger.
Okay.
And she writes about, the golden era of Hollywood.
Yeah.
Which is what I stopped being interested in foreign movies, and I got obsessed with the black and white golden era of Hollywood. I still am a film geek of that.
Yeah.
So I got my education there, and then I went to New York for a year. Mm-hmm. And I was very lucky in that year. I got hooked up with Sidney Lumet as a location scout for 2 of his movies.
Wow.
And then my car mechanic introduced me to Jonathan Demme.
Oh, my God.
And he took me under his wing as well while he was making a documentary about his cousin called Cousin Bubby.
I love that movie.
Oh, you've seen it?
Yes.
Oh, my God. It was such an amazing experience, too.
Such a precious movie, man.
It was, like hanging out, with Chuck D and and Ted Demme, who was doing Joe MTV Raps at the time.
Yeah.
And then going to, with them to Vermont. And he was putting Silence of the Lambs together at that point.
Yeah.
And it was just an amazing time to be around him.
He's someone that I always loved, but I never really truly understood like the power of his ethic until I started making stuff and looking at that guy's career and realizing he was just following whatever creative whim he had at any given time.
Yes.
And the fact that he was able to do that and like not only be successful, but also, you can tell, he was making those decisions where he was putting his heart into each one of those projects, and they're all so different from each other.
I know. It's remarkable. Like, he's so curious about the world, and so open. And, he would talk about directing is not about controlling, but it's about responding,
Yeah.
To everything. And he was like, great directors, the difference are the people that understand that.
Yeah. Because some people maybe can, but it seems like a futile pursuit, controlling everything. At least to me, I can't.
Well,
I can't
it also
imagine.
leaves an audience out.
Yeah.
When a director, has such a strong, control grip on it, you are like you sort of feel there's no room for me here.
Right.
Whereas if a director is responding, they're curious and they're responding to it, then he feels like they're extending a hand to you and inviting you to explore with them.
Yeah.
And it really is the difference between leaving, making room for the audience to be an active participant or not.
Right.
And I think it's the key to directing. It's just in that statement, which is like you have to consider your audience like a cast member. Like you're like you have a job to do.
Yeah.
Here, I want to give you a role that you have to play.
Yeah.
An active role.
Yeah.
And a lot of it has to do if you can earnestly be finding what they need to do along with yourself.
Yeah.
So I was very lucky, a great year. And he stayed in my life. I hired him to do episodes of Enlighten when I was producing that, and he did 2 beautiful episodes. And it's a great loss. I thought that he was taking care of me particularly, and then I realized that he was mentoring and taking care of dozens and dozens of young filmmakers.
Yeah, that's what it seemed like. I think it's funny, that curiosity. Something I think about. I try to think about this a lot, and it's something I lean on a lot. Is when I came down here to go to Cal Arts. My mentor there is Tom Anderson. Do you know that filmmaker? He made Los Angeles Plays Itself. Have you seen that movie?
Oh, yes. I've heard of it. I haven't seen it.
You need to see that movie,
it's incredible.
Man. Oh, my God. And that's a movie you watch and you realize you've been basically looking at your Los Angeles your entire life.
Yes.
If you've been watching stuff. And
how long is it?
3 hours.
3 hours, yeah.
Maybe 3.5. And it's all comprised of footage from other movies,
Yes.
and it's all one long film essay.
Wow.
And it is kind of exhausting, but you're in for
I'll
a
check
treat,
it out.
man. It's like candy. Yeah. But something he said, my first day at school, this guy is a very kind of caustic curmudgeon of a guy, or he comes off that way. He's a very giving person, but you have to get through that, initial layer. And it was like me and 7 other kids, and we were sitting around, and he wasn't talking, and he took us outside, and he was always smoking cigarettes and drinking coffee, and so he was smoking a cigarette, and he was kind of like looking off, in the distance, and he turns to us and he goes, yeah, one thing that's really great about filmmaking is you can kind of be interested in everything. and that statement was like letting the bird out of the cage or something,
That's exactly right.
And it's something I go back to with each decision I make is like, I'm allowed to do this through this avenue, and thank God,
Yeah. It's been such a pleasure talking to you,
Yeah,
Patrick.
man. Thank you so much.
I know you're super busy in so many fronts, so thank you for taking the time.
Thank you. I know you're in the same spot. So, all right. Thank you, man.
Take care.
Nick, thank you, man. That was a fantastic conversation.
Thank you to Patrick and Miguel for doing it. Thank you to you for being the glue that keeps us all together, Elliot Einhorn.
Thanks to Mark Yoshizumi, our engineer and co-producer.
Thanks to Gideon Brower, who recorded this conversation. And thank you to you for visiting us on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, and visiting talkhouse.com and checking out all the awesome content we have, including our newly invigorated and vibrant YouTube page, videos and video essays and live talks. It's overpoweringly wonderful.
That's right. We have some amazing conversations that we recorded live at the flagship Sonos store. You can see the David Cross with Jean Grey and Fab Moretti of the Strokes episode in its entirety.
That's a winner.
Also a winner, and related to Creep 2, we cut a great conversation with Desiree Akavan.
Desiree and Dan Schechter in conversation. That's a great talk.
You can find that on our SoundCloud page.
And on our website.
You can find that fucking anywhere.
Find it on the ground, stuck to your shoe.
Look underneath your chairs.
And you get a podcast.
And you get a podcast.
Yep, you can find that on the site or on the SoundCloud page that has all of our 100+ episodes.
And iTunes and Stitcher.
I'm Elliot Einhorn.
I'm Nick Dawson.
Till next time.
Goodbye and good luck.